Welcome to the Purpose Over Profit podcast with Darren and Chris, where each week we discuss what it takes to live a life of purpose and profit and explore the lives of people trying to achieve just that. Welcome back to the Purpose Over Profit podcast. Delighted to welcome Chris Stewart to the podcast, multiple business owner, a guy I've known for a good number of years. We work together in the corporate sector, in the utilities industry, and you're now taking redundancy in the last year and off and flying. So it'd be really great to hear a bit about your journey and kind of understand a bit about what you're up to at the moment.
Yes, and listen, thanks very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. So, and it's good to get back in touch because we've not spoken for a few months and since we left our jobs, so and kind of did the same thing. But yeah, so I've Darren, as you're saying, so we've known each other for a few years now. Darren actually employed me. You interviewed me for my previous role when we started working together, so it was your fault.
And you actually took the job as well after that.
I was a bit dubious when I met the guy that was interviewing. Like I wasn't too sure at first, but I thought they can't all be like that. So yes, Darren's fault. I was inflicted on that company for a few years, but so yeah, I've now been doing my own thing for a few months now. So as you say, I've got a few different businesses. Some that I've been trading for a couple of years, some that are now new that have come out of lockdown, as we kind of try to diversify and do things a bit differently. So keeping busy. And it's been an interesting one, obviously, everything that's going on. And I think we're all living through interesting times, but especially in the business world, looking to adapt what we're doing and kind of taking a different stance. So, which I think for some people it's maybe a bit more difficult than others. I've found it difficult at times, but it has been good in a way to look at diversifying and what we can do, and there's been opportunity in it as well. So, which we can talk through as we go through this today as well. So,
yeah, I think I was amazed. I mean, I remember when I was just leaving, we were having a conversation about one of your businesses, Wayne's World.
Right, so we were.
And we're chatting about it. You're telling me about the business idea, what you're going to be doing, and I was blown away by it. I mean, I'm a parent as well, so I've got kids, and the amount of soft plays I've been to, and we can come on to this in a minute, but you picked a pain point and you focused on it and you've made it a great business model as well. And then to hear you've done other things as well that I've found out since. You've wrote a book as well, a kid's book as well, which you can come on to. So it's just fantastic to hear about all this stuff. But I guess, what was your evolution like moving from the kind of corporate utility sector into being a business owner?
So I think it started off very manic. So as you say, so for the purpose of people listening, so the business that my first business that I started is Wayne's World Play Cafe. So that came out of our desire to do something a bit different for parents. So I've got young kids myself, and as you say,
and Chris, sorry, just should explain in case anyone in England's actually watching.
Yes,
Wayne's World has nothing to do with the 90s, yes. the 90s film, which we would have all been aware of, but it's a play on word. In Scotland, we call our kids Bairns or Waynes. Yeah,
it's a West of Scotland.
So there we go.
If you're not familiar with the West of Scotland vernacular, yes. So Waynes is a way of saying kids. So so we opened that. So I've got 3 young kids myself, and it was more about, it was the same. We'd been kind of sick of the same old experience, and doing the same old thing. And when you've got young kids and you take them to the kind of typical kids play days, I never really felt it was suitable for them, or you couldn't see them. It was a bit rough and tumble, and I just wanted to do something a bit different. So we'd taken over a restaurant and wanted to create somewhere that was a different experience for the kids, but also for somewhere that the parents wanted to go. So we created a venue that had a restaurant feel to it for the parents, and then for the kids, the play area is actually around about imaginative play, and it's a little town that they explore, like a little world. It's all about learning through play and engaging their minds as well through play. So it's a little different. And we opened that up 2.5 years ago. And I'd opened that while I was working in my corporate job. So it was an interesting experience, because we also had a limited budget with being our first business as well. So we were very hands-on. Not that I'm now saying that I've got all this money or anything like that, but I wish I did. But yeah, it was... So we were very hands-on. So even the build work and converting it, the restaurant, building the play area, everything, we did it ourselves.
Wow.
At that time, my wife was also pregnant. So Wayne's World opened in the December and she gave birth in the February. So when we opened, she was 7 months pregnant. So
this sounds like a kind of episode of Grand Designs where they've always got that kind of overwhelming deadline coming and the wife's pregnant as well.
It certainly was an overwhelming deadline. So yeah, it was very hands-on. because when you're doing that kind of thing, every penny's a prisoner, because you are trying to, you're a tight budget, and it quickly goes, and what you actually budget for it, I'm sure you know, and what you think it's going to cost, and what it actually costs, and the various surprises that come up throughout it is very different. So it was a tough one, because with 2 kids, with another baby on the way, and then also juggling 2 full-time jobs. So it was an experience that I would never change, because it shows what you can achieve when you actually put your mind to it. And I was working at times to 3 o'clock in the morning, and down in the venue, and then back up for work in the morning, and dealing with kids. But we did it. So it's just, there's this, and I'd never understood that thing. See, when people do DIY and they talk about the sense of pride they get, like, I don't get that. I would rather pay a painter and decorator and do it. I don't care about sense of pride. But for this was the first time I actually went, I get what you're talking about, like, because I was proud of what I've did. So that was the first business that we kind of developed.
And just on that point, how is your DIY skills now? Are they quite good, your DIY skills, or?
No, not at all. Like, I'll give anything a go, but I think I'm getting better. I think I'm good. Yeah. So people do disagree with me, but I think I'm right. So
I often joke with people when they ask me, it's like, how can you be a property investor and like not know what end the screwdriver works? Like, but I tend to not get involved in any sort of renovations really at all, because I know I'm garbage. My limit is building IKEA furniture. That's about it.
But I remember when you started, Darren. I'm sure I've seen you at the start where you were painting.
I was painting. I did that for one property to try and skim some costs, and then realised it was a hack job, and like we were there with a 6-month-old in a baby seat with the windows open, hoping she wasn't breathing in toxic fumes, and we kind of went, we'll probably pay someone the next time to do this, and we've ended up relying on professionals since.
I actually think you save money in the long run, because from the time you spend doing that, you could be doing something more productive.
100%.
So, but I quite enjoyed it. Like, even we were upholstering all the seats, and we got quotes for it. And I thought, I'm in the wrong business. I'm going to become an upholsterer. So we had we roped our friends in, and we had like a conveyor belt going, where like someone had the old material. So we found material online, and we used so with the old template, and we took the seat off, and we used that to draw around, and then someone else cut it and someone else drilled it back on. So it was quite good. Like, I enjoyed that element of it. But from then onwards, I would just pay a professional. So, but it worked for us at the time. It was good.
Well, actually,
going back to when like the decision to start Wayne's World. What was there a seminal moment that you went, I need to get out of this corporate life. I need to move. What shifted for you, or was it a moment, or was it kind of just a growing? There's something more for me.
So there was a bit of both. So it started off, I was always very engaged in my job, and I was always very career driven, especially in my 20s. I know you wouldn't believe that I'm not in my 20s now, but I'm not. So when I was very career driven, and always just had that kind of work ethic, wanted to do my best, and took pride in my work, etc., etc. But I think as I got older, I kind of lost the passion for doing it for someone else, and it was a gradual thing where I was kind of working on different projects and bits and pieces, and I would still do the job and do it to the best of my ability, but I kind of didn't have the passion for it anymore. And then I always remember there was going into the office and sitting in the train, and you're looking up at everyone staring down at their phones. And then you kind of make your way through the crowds into the office. You walk in, everyone's sitting, it's all quiet, and the keyboards are going typing, and you can hear all the fingers going. And I thought, there's got to be better than this. And it just wasn't for me anymore. So, and it felt natural to go into, because at that time I had young kids, and you know what it's like, you've got young kids, your whole world is them. So that kind of felt a natural thing to go into. That's where I kind of felt drawn to go, well, could we do something for them? And I always remember going out for dinner. So anybody that's got young children, you'll know the pain of when you decide to go out for your dinner and you go to a nice restaurant, and the idea in your head and what actually happens is very different. And you kind of look across the table and think, why did we do this? Because it's a bit of a nightmare. So that is where I thought, how do we do something that kind of makes it somewhere that parents can go and enjoy? Because I want to go and enjoy somewhere, and I've got kids. So it did come it started a feeling that started with me, but then there was that kind of moment, just sitting looking about the office and going, this isn't for me anymore, so I want to do my own thing.
I can totally appreciate that, Chris. I remember the very last day that I travelled into work for my very last day in the corporate world. And I remember looking up, like you were saying, and seeing everyone looking down on their phones and thinking this sense of euphoria and relief that you weren't going to be doing that anymore because you knew that you had something bigger to go to. Not that anyone else doesn't have anything bigger to go to, but you're going to do something for yourself. And it sounds like you and your partner have kind of decided that early on when you're out for dinner, and you're right. When you're out for dinner, the experience is never the same. I mean, I'd snap somebody's hand off just now to go out for dinner during this pandemic, but at the same time, you're right, that experience is different. I mean, how easy was it for you and your wife or your partner to decide to go ahead with the idea of opening up a soft play?
We've always been quite, we always kind of jump into things, like it's always been a kind of nature. So to be honest, it was pretty easy to do. Sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing, but we've always been quite impulsive. So we just went for it. It was, I mean, it wasn't easy to do because there's a lot of all the legalities of it and working through it, but the decision to do it, we just went for it. And I think I've always kind of been like that, like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I would rather regret doing it and it not working than regret not doing it. So we just kind of jumped in, and we did get a lot of advice from people not to do it actually, because, which I think, and more so, not it's people caring, and I think it's mostly the people closest to you that usually, I don't want to say give you negative advice, but maybe are a bit more, there's obviously that voice in your head that's telling you not to do something, and you try and block it out, because there'll always be that worry, and what if it goes wrong? And I think a lot of people kind of sometimes that the people closest to you kind of repeat that because they're obviously worrying about the same things. So there was that element of it of going, well, maybe they're right, but no, we just kind of jumped in anyway. So, and I think we've already been pregnant at the time, my wife been pregnant. It was also a bit of a concern, like, so people closest were saying maybe not to do it, but we got the right venue because we're looking for a specific venue that was an ex-restaurant, had the right feel and look about it. And we just went for it and thought, well, do you know what? When is the right time? Because being pregnant's not the right time, having kids isn't the right time. There's always a reason not to do something. There's a million reasons not to do something, like, and everything's risky. I mean, there's risk in anything you do. So driving a car's risky, having kids is risky. Like so we just went for it. And in the whole, it worked out pretty well for us. So, and we've enjoyed it. There's been difficult moments. We've had a global pandemic during it, which no one could have foreseen. But we're still standing. So.
I love that, and me and Chris were actually speaking about that same thing, like on our first episode, just about there is never a good time. Like even a global pandemic, everything that's happened, like to the economy and things like that, is generally it's happened before. You know, even a global pandemic, we've had that. Yes, the reaction was different. You could argue, but there is never a good time. So, you know, the best time, I don't know who that said it, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Well, the next best time is today. So just kind of crack on and do it. So I love that drive. It doesn't sound like, even though there was maybe some naysayers or people looking out to protect you and thinking that you're making a risky move, you listened, but you just had, it feels like your gut's almost telling you, no, go and do this. You'll regret it if you don't.
Yes, and your gut's always right. And it's taken me a while to get to that, because I would always try and go, especially with starting business as well, because I think you doubt your gut at times when you start, because I was so, like, I would focus on the facts and the data and think, even from various things, from making a decision sometimes to employing someone, there was various things I would always go, even at times my gut was saying it wasn't right, I would doubt myself sometimes because I was new into business and going, and in my corporate job, I wouldn't have doubted myself, but I did in my own thing. But I found over time that your guts, 9 times out of 10, it's right. I mean, your body's telling you it for a reason. Do you know what I mean? It's sensing it. So, and I think that's the best way to go. And you just know, like, so if your gut's telling you it's the right decision, and yeah, you want to have the data to back it up, and obviously it's calculated risk at times, but go with what feels right. And do you know what? See if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
There's always a risk of doing something as well. So I talk about this concept of weighing up whether the juice is worth the squeeze. And certainly as I've grown older and as soon as I had kids, that, like, what I was giving up, the squeeze felt a lot, do you know what I mean, in terms of the time I was given to basically an employer to be sat at a desk doing something that I hadn't chosen to do, actually. I was going through something that was someone else's purpose. And there was that just understanding that actually, could I, you know, there's lots of ways to make money. And you grow in yourself a bit, you have a bit more confidence in yourself to kind of go and do that. And And when you think about starting a business, there's going to be risk in doing that. There's going to be risk in standing still, people getting laid off in the last year. So, there's always risk in terms of everything you do. So, no, hat off to you in terms of getting started. And how much practical, like just breaking it down, how much did you have to get into to get that off the ground? I know you said you were on a tight budget, and I don't know how much you can say, but just to give people a bit of a feel for, like, what, how did you go about raising and starting that sort of finance to get going?
Borrow, begged, and stole. I still owe people money. So we had financed it ourselves a bit. So we took out some finance, but we also put in our own money as well to it. But from the start, I was hands on with everything. From, as I say, the build part of it, but even because there was the element of it, the building work and the renovate of it was a time consuming, but it was the whole, like, just creating it all, because it wasn't just you had a new business, but you also had a physical venue. We also required staff. We also had to say, so there was loads to do. We had to, and an HR point of view as well, like even so we recruited 15 staff. We had to go through all the process and the interview processes, getting all the documents, getting staff handbooks, uniforms, renovating the venue, creating everything we've done. Like, so there was loads of different elements to it. Plus, even though it's a plain dine venue, so there was it's really a catering business. Like, so I remember starting and we were recruiting staff who had said things like they worked, so there was maybe we wanted to work the weekends and they'd worked in nurseries, and we were like, well, this is great. And then we quickly learned, no, this is a catering, we're running a hospitality venue, because they come into play, but it's the venue, the dining side that keeps you busy. So that was a whole learning curve, which I loved. I really enjoyed that. So I like to think I'm a bit of Gordon Ramsay now, like I'm up in the kitchen, like the cuts and everything's rolling.
I remember coming in, I think you were like ushering folk out the way. I'll make him a coffee. I'll make him a coffee.
I'll do it. And it came with a big, so that the place we got is brilliant. It's got a big, huge commercial kitchen up the stairs. It's got loads of potential, because we're also planning to open up at night as well. And that's always been our plan, which is why I took over a restaurant, because I always had in my head that at some point we're going to open up as an evening restaurant, but totally focused on young families. Because again, when you go out with young kids, it's a hassle, and some places are family friendly, but they're not actually just aimed at young families. So that's always been it was actually going to happen just before COVID kicked in. So it's now, but we've had plenty of time to plan it, so it's going to be coming next. But so it's got loads of potential. But yeah, that's been an interesting one, and I've really enjoyed that. So even then, because you've got to sit and create menus and do some tasting, get the right coffee in, because again, there's the small detail is what brings people back, because we wanted to have a place where, because kids will play anywhere, but it's the parents that decide where you take them. So we wanted a place that the parents wanted to come to, and also that the kids enjoyed. So we were involved in everything, and it was a massive learning curve. So and I think my previous jobs had set me up quite well for it in some aspects, but in other aspects it was completely new. So, but enjoyable, and I'm still learning. I'm 2 years down the line now, and I still learn new things. So, but I've got a lot of experience now in the back of it as well.
But what I was going to say is you've tapped into something fantastic. It's the experiential part of the experience for the adult, I feel like, that's taking the child along, because a lot of these experiences are built around the kids' experience. So what's that energy around and the involvement? So you've been able to create a kind of an area where kids can explore stuff with their minds. It's quite different from a soft play, but you've also given them the kind of dining experience as well for the adults. So it's kind of taking a blended model of kind of Disneyland and all these kind of models, but creating something that's perfect for the adult in that environment. It's a safe place as well. And you're right, when you go back to as well, when you work in that environment where you had a boss and a corporation and you had a paycheck coming in every month, that idea of having that security, you were very confident because you had that coming in. But when you're making decisions for yourself, I guess that's harder, because whatever decision you make is going to impact your family and your business straight away. And there's no kind of safety blanket around you.
Very true, because at the end of the day, the buck completely stops with me now. There's nobody else that I can put it up the ladder to. It's just me, which is a scary thought at times. So, and there's always a fire to put out. There's always something that happens. There's always an issue. But I do enjoy it as well, the fact it's just me at times. But I say just me, I've got a team of staff, so, and I involve those guys, and I couldn't do it without them. But at the end of the day, when you're the owner of the business, it's then the buck does stop with you. So you do firefight quite a lot, but it's also good because you can make quicker decisions. Because one thing that always frustrated me, and I'm not saying all businesses are like this, but many are, is that you have a lot of people involved in decision making, a lot of hoops to jump through, and a lot of difficult conversations. So I quite like that I can be quick, like there's the efficiency of it just now, and that you can. And I kind of do believe in going, like, making quick decisions, because I'd rather find out I'm wrong quicker than sit on it for ages. And then if I find it wrong, I'll just change it and do it the right way, you know. So. And I kind of like that approach. So I do enjoy the fact that I've now got that kind of control over the decision-making side of it. And I've got the right team round about me as well. So I've got guys that I can rely on, and I've got people that know there's in certain aspects they know more than I do, and they're more skilled than I do. And I think that's key to it as well, is surrounding yourself with people that are better than you. But and they give you the right information, can help you come to a decision. But I do enjoy the fact that it's more streamlined now when it comes to decision-making and how we move forward. So, which can be difficult at times. Sometimes you're steering a big boat, you're trying to get a big ship to turn around in corporations, but with us, we're a bit more streamlined and quicker to move.
Well, that was always an analogy I heard working in the big corporations. It was like trying to get a tugboat to move an oil tanker, but I guess it's much easier for you. And I'm going to ask you a slightly different question here, because obviously talked about the business, talked about your staff, talked about you. I mean, how is it for the family? How do the kids enjoy it, having their own experience just at the foot, basically a driveway with their dad? Is that quite an experience for them?
They're so ungrateful, they hate it. I think because when we were doing the place up, we spent months down here, and they would come down with us, and it was like a building site. So I think they started off, they grew to hate the place, but my little one loves it. So I've got three boys. The older boys they're 9 and 7, so they're a bit older now. The one at 9 thinks he's 19, so he's getting no interest in it. The one at 7 enjoys it. My little boy loves it. He's at a great age. He's only 2. So, and I actually bring him down. So it's quite good. So during lockdown, I've got somewhere we can come down here and let him run about for a bit and play. So it's quite handy to have your own kids play venue when you've got during lockdown with 3 kids. But they do enjoy it. I think that it was difficult for them as well when we were doing it, because they probably resented it a little because it took us away so much. And which was difficult for us as well. But as adults, you can kind of rationalise it and say, look, it's just 3 months out of my life, and then we're good to go. But for kids, it's not as simple as that. So, and then obviously as an adult, you feel guilty. You have all that to deal with, because you do feel guilty being away. But when you're in your work and you're busy, it kind of takes your mind off it. But I think for kids, they just want their mum and dad to be there. So it was difficult for them. But then I also think to myself, they see the kind of fruits of your labour. And it's a good lesson for them as well to see the work that you do and what you can achieve. So,
yeah, it's definitely something that as a 9-year-old, 7-year-old, whatever sort of age, when you're a kid, you don't have the same perspective on life. So 3 months can feel like a lifetime. But yeah, this whole thing that I was talking about earlier, the juice and the squeeze, it's like, well, what's the alternative? The alternative could be that they don't see you for 40 hours a week, and you're sat in front of a laptop, plus you've got commuting time back and forward, but that is times by, 20 years, 25 years that you're going to be doing that for another. So 3 months in the context feels, a very good alternative in terms of having that focus time for 3 months to then actually be living more on your terms, and they'll reap the benefit of that.
I think as well, they've got the benefit then now, because with having your own business, there comes a level of flexibility, and it's not that it's not that you're saying, oh, you now have your own thing, you're free to do what you want. Like, it's not like that at all. But you have flexibility at times to choose when you work.
Yeah.
So, which is great. So I can be home every lunchtime, which I make a point of doing, especially now during lockdown. So I'm working in the venue just now, so as it's empty, and it gives me a place to work, and I've got an office, but I'll go home every lunchtime, whereas I couldn't have done that before in my corporate job when I was working in the city. I'm there at night. I make sure that, because I'll work later on at night if I need be. So I've got the level of flexibility there. It's pretty good that you can spend time with your kids when you want to. Not all the time, because things do come up, but it gives you that flexibility that you can work around that as well. So, which is always good.
Yeah, I was listening to just interesting listening to you. So I was listening to the Billy Connolly book, I think his most recent one. And he talks about that sense of pride of what he's achieved. But he was giving an example when he was a junior welder, and he walked by the QE2 and they were working on it in the shipyard, and somebody asked him to put a washer on it. So he put a washer on it, and then a lifetime later, he was in Australia and he seen the QE2 there, and he said to his wife and his daughter, I've got a washer on that boat somewhere. And that's a sense of pride of having something you've owned that is in somewhere. And I guess for your kids and your family, seeing that sense of pride of building something bricks and mortar just now, but your other businesses, to show them that you don't just have to go for a 9 to 5 job, you can create something for yourself. That must be quite rewarding in itself.
As my granddad used to say that as well with the Royal Hospital in Glasgow, because he helped build that. So he used to always say that. He used to also tell a story as well that the next door neighbour in their street had a carpet in their house that had the crest of the hospital on it because they sold it to her. There was extra carpet and he took it and sold it to his next door neighbour. So he made a few pound off them as well.
Fantastic.
But yeah,
it's such a West Coast story that.
She had a carpet in her house with the crest of the hospital in the living room. It does. It's. I think even for me as well. Sometimes like you still do kind of when you're driving past, you're walking and you see the place and you go, you do have a sense of pride in it. And I think it's good for your kids to know that even when they come in and that their mum and dad have did this and like it's your kind of thing. And I dare say that when they'll appreciate it more as the age. I think my middle son, he's quite entrepreneurial even at 7, which I do try to encourage. So he loves it. Like he loves the creation of things than it being there himself, and he's interested in it. He talks about it, and even at his age, like he's kind of displaying like he'd like to go into his own business, and I try to encourage that. So like he goes round the doors. I quite liked that. He was going round the doors selling lollipops.
Wow.
He wanted to sell them for charity. So he said, I'm going to go down in the doors and sell lollipops and I'm going to donate the money to charity. So I said, great, son. And when I took him round, I says, what are you going to charge? So he was charging, it was like 50 pence or something. And I heard him at the door and the lady says, how much are they? And he said 50 pence. And then he quickly jumped in and says, but I can do you 5 for a fiver. And I thought, that's my boy.
5 for a fiver.
5 for a fiver, right?
I remember seeing a few business cases for you, Chris, so I know where he's getting that maths from.
He gets his numbers from his dad.
That is awesome. Well done.
That's great. So listen, bring us back up to, well, I suppose, start of 2020 then, pandemic hitting, you're still in corporate employment. We both obviously took redundancy at the same time from the same company. Talk us through the impact on Wayne's World, in particular, your move into, Rate My Cleaner as well, and building that business up and seeing an opportunity for that, and also just that decision around leaving corporate employment.
So yes, we both left at the same time, but it was always part of my plan that I was going to do it, and it was just waiting for the right moment. And then during the pandemic, everyone told me that wasn't the right moment, so we had the chance to leave our jobs and take redundancy. And everyone that I spoke to was saying, don't do it because the economy's on its knees and businesses are closed. Like, why would you do it? And part of you then, I was thinking that as well, that was in my head, but I also thought it'd be crazy to have been wanting to do it. And here's an opportunity to do it and to say no. And I knew that at the end of the day, like I felt confident that I could work something out if I had to. And I thought plan B or plan C or whatever it is, I'll do something. But it gave me the opportunity to do something different with the business as well, because when we had to close back in March last year, it was difficult, but there was also opportunity to diversify what we were doing. And in my head, I kind of thought, to get us back up off our knees, because everyone was like in the business world being closed, it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to need my full concentration and full focus. And how can I give my full focus to a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, and at the same time try and get the business back up and diversify and do different things? So I had to make that call, and I didn't want, again, going back to that whole thing about regretting. You don't want to regret something or look back and regret not doing it. So I decided to take the leap, and kind of went self-employed. So, but at the same time, I was also working on a new concept during lockdown. So when the business was closed, it gave me time to then work on something new. So I created a new, and again, it was out of my own kind of experience, but I created an online marketplace for domestic and commercial cleaning services, and I seen a gap in Scotland especially for it. So it gave me time to do that. And we also then diversified the venue that we have, and we started a new delivery and food delivery business. And we're now creating a new street food takeaway business out of an empty part of the building that we don't use, which is just about to launch as well. So
Wow.
it's gave me the time and the chance to then fully focus on what I want to do. And I always remember hearing, I can't remember who said it, but it was a motivational speaker. May have been a Tony Robbins, someone like that. And they were talking about how if you want to take the island, you need to burn your boats. It's always stuck in my head because when you're in your 95, you've always got a foot in that. There's a foot in the door. You've always got an escape plan and there's somewhere to go. So in your mind, even though you might feel you're giving it 100%, are you though, if you've still got that job to do and you know that, you know what, if this doesn't work out, I've got a safety net. But when you take that safety net away, it'll amaze you the difference it makes to your focus and what you want to do. So I think for me, leaving my 9 to 5, it definitely helped because that safety net was gone. So at the end of the day, my mortgage getting paid is on me, you know, it's on my efforts and what I do. And it gave me the time to focus on doing different things. So we've now got the Wayne's World has now went from one business to now 3. And we've then launched a 4th as well. So it's separate from it. So it's given us time to do that.
It's phenomenal, Chris. Like, and it makes me, it genuinely makes me so happy to kind of sit and hear from you. 3 months out of corporate employment, and if anything, all that's done is supercharge your creativity, your desire, your ability to go and actually make stuff happen. Like I sit in genuine awe, even though I'd been building the property business for a while. I remember the conversation we had actually around burning the boats. You were really debating it at the time whether to leave or whether not to. But yeah, I guess I felt I always had the security of the property investment business that I'd been building for a number of years. But you had a business that was, you know, like you said, it was closed. It was on its knees, all your staff on furlough, and you've still been able to come through and make that decision. You've burned the boats, and then you've went within 3 months, you're kind of launching multiple businesses. You're pivoting your original business to open up, you know, takeaway foods, you know, takeaway coffees, that type of stuff. It's like, yeah, I think you've done so well. It's such an inspiration, and there's so many lessons in there for people that are listening to around what that can do. Trust in yourself, trust in your gut, and giving yourself that fear that you've got to go and make stuff happen. Trust that you'll go and dig yourself out of that. But yeah, hat off to you.
Yeah, totally. Can I just touch upon the children's book as well? Because we haven't really discussed that.
Oh, he's not going to be able to walk out of Wayne's World. His head's going to be... You mentioned Disneyland earlier and compared Wayne's World to Disneyland. I thought, oh Christ, here we go.
I didn't think it would top the
international bestseller. Here he is. Go.
J.K. Rowling from Scotland. Yes, that's right. So that was when did that publish?
You were still at SSE, I remember.
I was still working. So I've always, it's been a bit of a hobby of mine that I've always kind of tinkered with and just did it for a bit of fun. And I'd said I wrote some stories for the kids and different things. And then I just decided to give it a go. So it was a good part of about 3 or 4 months. And I just, every night at my kitchen table, I sat and worked through it. And it was published in September 2018. It was actually published the month that I got the keys for Wayne's World. So I timed it quite nicely. I did that and then moved on to something else. So, and yeah, like we've now, like it amazes me because I've sold copies in America and all sorts. So it blows my mind to think that in America there's copies of this book that I wrote.
And what's it called for the listeners?
It's called The Lost Panda. So it's a novel for ages 7 to 11. You can get it on Amazon. So it does blow my mind a bit that there's copies of this book that I sat and wrote at my kitchen table on coffee tables in America. And I even sold one in India as well, which I thought was amazing. So
wow.
There's one guy in India who's got this book.
That's all it takes, just the one person.
Just the one. So I've now broken Asia. I'm big in Asia now, so I've done it. And yeah, so that was just it was a bit of a hobby that I just kind of decided to give it a go and see how it went. So, and I had another one that I've kind of was working on. It was completely different. It was aimed at a more grown-up audience, but which I'm halfway through, and I had to kind of put it on ice just with everything else going on. But I'll go back to it at some point. But that'll be my follow-up.
I wonder if your wife, when she sees you at the kitchen table finishing your book, she's kind of worried what's coming next, and then what's coming next, and what's coming next. It sounds like you've got. It sounds whatever you put your mind to becomes a success, which is fantastic as well.
Well, I think there's a lot of. It's not always success. There's a lot of challenges. But it's just putting your mind to it. I think that's because how many times do you have ideas and don't act on them? How many times do you see people saying that something was their idea that they thought of? I remember I used to say this about onesies, right? So I used to always say when I was hungover, I thought, it would be great. See the things that like babies wear, the big zip-up things. How good would that be if one of them was an adult? And I used to talk about this. So I used to claim that I invented the onesie before it actually came out. But I think it is just about doing it. It's just in taking action, taking a leap, give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like as I said before, if you're going to fail, it's as well as failing quick, and then finding out how to do it right. So the book was interesting. It done well. Like I was quite chuffed with how it done. I was happy. And then Wayne's World was launched, and I'm looking forward to getting back because the thing is, even with Wayne's World being closed, it's gave us time to sit and think, what do we want to do next, and how can we continuously get better? Because I'm very aware that when people come back, there's going to be a desire to get back. There's a desire to get back to normal life, but how do we make sure that when we come back that we add more value than anyone else? And I like the fact that even during the pandemic, it's been a lot, even your competitors, like people who were traditionally known as your competitors, are now you've become kind of friends with them and you've been working in conjunction with them and helping each other out. And it's been great. But I'm also conscious that when we come back, there'll be a lot of competition for customers. And how do we make sure that we add the most value for customers? It's always been our thing. Like it's always that's the approach we've always taken. Like how can we add as much value as possible, and how can we make it that the kind of wow factor? So when even like I remember reading a thing and it was a Disney thing, and when you were talking about Disney, and it was how they make the mundane magical. It's always stuck with me to think like, so when you walk in the door, if you're going to the toilet, whatever it may be, those mundane things, how do you make that an experience? Like, what can you do while they're walking there, and what can you put in place? So we've took the time, and we've got loads of plans now when we come back. And then, as I said, we've started a food delivery business, and we've got a new street food takeaway launching. That business is launching in the next few weeks. So it's been an interesting time, like, but it's given us time to kind of adapt and look at what we're doing. And I think that's what it comes back to. It's how you use that time, because you could shut up shop, you could kind of sit and wait it out and hope for the best, or you can actually go, well, how do I make the most of a bad situation? Because you can't control being closed, but you can control what you do while you're closed, and how you change how you serve your customers and interact with your customers, and that's what we've been looking to do. So
yeah, it's phenomenal story, Chris. And I was going to ask you about your vision, but that ability to change direction, I guess, over furlough, over that COVID period, like you say, there'll be many businesses that are going to be struggling, and you could have been one of them and are one of them, but you decided to actually go and take control of what your future was going to be.
I think there's always opportunity. So there's opportunity in anything, and I think I've even read before about how sometimes the most opportunity is in the times of the maximum pessimism. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the most pessimistic times can be the times when there's most opportunity for certain things. So, and that's kind of what it's about. I think it's just looking for that opportunity, and there's, because you think the world's changed, and even how people interact, how people eat, how they interact with their friends, even look at the now like the work environment and Zoom, and there's loads of different changes. So it's just looking at how you can then take your business and what you offer and look at the changes that have taken place, how we interact differently in the world, and how can you then kind of feed into that, and how can you do something and provide a service that then complements that. And that's what we've been trying to do. So and it's been difficult, and obviously businesses are closed, and I'm not trying to kind of downplay that, because there's a lot of challenges, financial and mental health challenges. There's loads, but I also think there's a responsibility on us and how we handle it, and how we can kind of what we focus on and what we can do. So,
any ideas similar to the onesie that you think could come out of COVID?
I don't know if I'll ever top the onesie, mate. I think that was my pinnacle moment, but
I don't think you should share it either, to be honest, in the podcast.
I'll keep that one for myself. I'll surprise you with it. So the newest business we're working on, well, is Rate My Cleaner. So that's my latest one. So which I'm really excited about. So there's loads. I think it's got loads of potential. We're out to. It's came at a great time, because the cleaning industry is on its knees, like a lot of industries at the moment in Scotland. domestic house cleaners aren't allowed in properties, for example. So, whereas what we're looking to do is we want to connect cleaners and customers. We want to make it easy for customers to find a cleaning professional and vice versa. So it allows us to support the Scottish cleaning industry. We've now got some interest down south as well, which is great. So, but it gives us that opportunity to be that platform that helps people back on their feet, and that's how we're approaching it. So even it's not just about helping them kind of grow their business, but we're also providing a range of benefits that we're looking to provide these guys, and talking to various other companies as partners. So I think even though you could look at that and think to yourself, well, it's been a bad time to launch because people can't use it due to lockdown, but actually it's given us a chance to get people, to get our message out there, to get businesses signed up, and it gives us a chance to help people when it opens back up again. So I would like to think we're going to be well prepared to launch and get going once lockdown starts to lift. And I'm excited about that one. I think that's got loads of potential, so I'm looking forward to it.
Cleaning companies in general, I'd imagine, like that industry itself will be one of the biggest areas of growth post-COVID.
Well, exactly. So
chemicals people use, but also just the fact, like the amount of cleaners needed, you know, the time spent in that industry will be, per business, is going to be a lot more.
100%, definitely, especially when you think about all the businesses that are going to be opening back up again, and how you have to provide a safe environment for your customers, which always has been the case, but with a different factor now with COVID. So it's definitely there's a huge spotlight on it just now, and those guys, but at the moment those guys are struggling like most businesses. So and we've now created a business that we believe will be successful, but can also help people at the same time. So, and help other businesses to be successful, which is a win-win for everyone.
Well, you're right. I know a business as well that operates in the cleaning world, and they were saying that basically they've got so many jobs waiting to get started. Once they get the green light, they can go in and start them, but it's just waiting for that to be authorised, which is hard. But going back to your own business, actually, around the Wayne's World and the Rate My Cleaner, it sounds like you've got that kind of trust element running throughout them all, where people will come to you for the trusted service, because they'll come to Wayne's World because they know it's a great experience for the kids. Kids are going to get looked after, and they're going to get looked after as well from a kind of fulfillment of food and enjoyment point of view. But then with the cleaning side as well, you're giving them that trust that you're going to give somebody who's been rated well. And actually, if you're going to buy a product over another product, I always look at the ratings to see what they are, or the Trustpilot reviews, and that would make sway my decision. Is that what swayed your decision in that kind of trust element? I mean, what is your purpose for driving all these businesses forward?
Yes, definitely. I think it's essentially what we do. Like, I think for us, it's all about how we add value for people, but it's caring as well. And I always, one of the things I always say to the guys that work in Wayne's World especially, is you should always aim to say yes, because I always find it frustrating that when businesses just say no for the sake of saying no, or because of a rule, or even their own ego. Like, how many times I hear people arguing with customers and it's an ego thing because they just don't want to be seen to be wrong. Like, so always, for me, it's about just, it's adding value, doing the right thing. I think if you care about your customers and if you make them essentially what you're doing, then everything else will fall into place, because people will always choose, because people get a sense of that as well. And you know, like if you go somewhere, you know when people care, and you know if if a place is out to give you the right service. And you know what? We don't always get it right. Not everyone does. There's always mistakes. Things will happen. But if people know that your heart's in the right place and you're coming at from at the right place as well, then it makes life so much easier. And I think that's a lot of success is based on that. Don't get me wrong. There's people that there's businesses that maybe do the complete opposite and still get some success. But I think if you come of it from that point of view, then success will follow. And that's how with Rate My Cleaner, we're also taking it from that point of going, look, our kind of purpose here and where we're focusing on is how can we help? And if we provide a service that helps people and that they see the value in it, then it's going to be successful. So that's where we always come from. I always think, how can I help you? How can I do more for them? How can I build partnerships? And how can we use our collective buying power to get partnerships that are going to help cleaning businesses? And that's what we've been focusing on. And if we continue to do that and think about how can we help, then we're going to get the customers. We're going to get the businesses that want to work with us because they see the value in it and they know that's what we're here to do. And I do personally, anyone that comes on board with us, I personally take the time to get to know them, get to know their business. I have conversations with them around about what they're looking to achieve, what they want to do, because I think as well that you'll get back what you put into it. So I want to encourage them to also be the same way. So I look to build a personal relationship with people. They've got my telephone number. I get to know them in that way, and it's maybe that's easier just now because we're starting out as well. But I want to maintain that, and and have that kind of two-way dialogue at all times with people as well. So, and I think that'll always help you.
What about your own purpose, I guess? What's your sort of 10-year plan? Where would you see yourself in 10 years?
For me, it's always been about, I think it comes back to freedom. Like, and it's not, I'm not saying that, and I said, not the kind of freedom people think. Sometimes when you talk about business and going, I'll start a business and I'll go and lie on a beach. Like, it's not that. It's about freedom of choice. I think it's been able to have, it's your life in your terms. And I always remember, it was a quote about how when you work for someone else, you've got to ask for permission to go and spend a couple of weeks with your family. You've got to get permission to go on your holiday, and that always stuck with me. Like, thinking you've got to put in a forum and ask to be allowed to go and spend time with your family. So for me, it's always been about that kind of freedom of choice and what that'll bring as well. So, but it is interesting because a lot of times when you start off, you don't have freedom, and that sense of freedom you're going to get is not there because you're having to work sometimes twice as hard for. But that's always been my driver as well, is having that sense of freedom in doing.
Definitely see you come alive as well. Whether it's the creativity or building something of your own, it's seeing what you've done over the last 3-4 months since you've almost been unleashed from the shackles of corporate employment. Like, it's just amazing to see what you've been able to do. And like you say, it's not about lying on the beach, and an income coming in. You're in the trenches, you're trying to be creative, you're trying to pivot and see what can work, test things out, take risks. So is there something there as well about, being creative and just, testing yourself in different environments?
And just to build on that, I've seen your nights out, Chris, and that energy, enthusiasm is infectious. So
it's unleashed then as well, you're right.
Yeah. So I can imagine that energy now is put into the business as well, which is fantastic, instead of being stored up for nights out, which is great. Because
I'm not allowed a night out anymore. Yes, that's very true. I enjoy the creative side of it. I enjoy building them. That's actually probably my favourite part of it. I enjoy that the idea in creating something. I do get probably the biggest buzz out of that. Which is why I've maybe ended up with a few of them, because I do enjoy that. But I think it comes back to what you're passionate about. I think it's a different experience when you're working on something that's yours and something that you're completely invested in, and that you want to make. You want it to be a success, and you know that at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. So it's a different experience. But I do think it's that creative element. I do enjoy that. I do enjoy the building of them, and I actually quite enjoy the stress of it as well. Like, strangely enough, like, I quite enjoy the fact that when things are going wrong, like, having to fix it. And I like the kind of, every day's different and things will come up. You'll have to put out fires. There's always an element of firefighting, and there's something going wrong, but it's you that's fixing it, and it's an interesting day. So I do think that's probably my kind of favourite part of it.
And I guess looking at probably everything you've done just now, I mean, one question we'll try to ask everyone is around, do you think it's purpose over profit, or are they both equal in your eyes?
I think it's purpose over profit. I think, like, nobody, money's, I mean, we're all wanting to earn money, like, it's great, and it's what it makes life a bit easier, but I don't think it's not the money that you want, it's what the money represents. So, I mean, it's at the end of the day, money's bits of paper, it's a figure in a bank account, it's a figure on your computer, but it's what it represents and what it gives you. But I think you could be the richest man on the planet and be absolutely miserable, which I'm sure a lot of people are. Like, yep. But it's the sense of purpose, and I think even giving back as well. So we do a lot of charity stuff, and that's one of the biggest buzzes I get is that element of it, because we do work with, like, the local food bank. We do fundraising for we worked with Mary's Meals, which is a fantastic charity from Glasgow that provides meals for from kids in disadvantaged countries. So we do various bits and pieces, and that, I think, and even the staff love it as well, I think. And I even remember back working with you guys in the corporate world, like, when we used to do things for charity, people enjoy that more than anything. When you talk about giving back, like, it's that I think is it's great for the engagement of the staff, it's great for us. And I remember even we had just before Christmas, actually, we were doing a lot of delivery stuff, and a lot of corporations had contacted us to do delivery food for their staff. They were doing, like, virtual Christmas do's and things like that. And one of the team had come back and they told me a story about they'd went to the wrong door and they had this little kind of part, it was like a platter, like an afternoon tea platter, and a little old lady answered the door and seen this and broke out in a big smile and said, "Oh, that's so nice, thanks very much, who sent it?" And it turned out the neighbour then poked her head out the window and said, "Well, I believe that's for me," and they went to the door, right? And that stuck in my head. So they told me this story and I was gutted. I thought, I can't believe that. And in my head, this was this poor wee old lady into the house herself, and because you start creating this story. So the next day I went and made one up and went back to the lady's door.
Wow.
And I chapped the door, and she lived in Glasgow, and she came to the door and she went, "Oh son, I don't think that's for me," thinking the same thing had happened. And I said, "Actually it is for you." And I said, "They told me the story yesterday and I couldn't figure it out in my head, so I wanted to bring you one in." And she says to me, "Oh, that's great, it's my birthday today." So how much was that meant to happen? And my grandson's coming over, and she was all happy. And see that day, like, and I'm not telling it to try and make out to show off anything like that, but just to get to the point, like, I was flying that day. Like, the whole day I was buzzing, just because of taking that in. And it's just because of that sense of doing something for someone else. And I'll always remember that. I'll always, even if Wayne's World crashes and burns and everything goes, that's one thing that'll always stick in my head of all the memories, is when we give back to people and we've done different charity stuff. So I think for me, that's huge. And the more you do it, the better you feel. And I suppose that there's a bit of a selfish element to it, isn't it? When you say that, like, you think it's making you feel better, but it's not about that. It's about, it's just that's benefit. That's something that comes from it. But I would encourage anyone to get involved in that as much as possible, because it definitely has benefits, and I think that's what it's all about, isn't it?
I love that. What a great story to finish on, Chris. I've got to be honest. There's this Zig Ziglar quote that's like, if you help enough people get what they want, you get everything you want. And there's something I always remember in that it's not just about what you get in pounds and pence in the bank, like you say. It's just a number in the bank account. It's actually what that can help you do, and how you can help other people in life in general. So what a phenomenal story.
It's also that ripple effect of what that granny's then said to her grandson, and her grandson said to somebody else. That's a beautiful story, because you mentioned earlier on about your gut instinct, what you shop and buy with. And that's the same with any customers. They shop with their gut instinct. So when they hear those kind of stories, all that does is amplify your business and your brand, and people come straight back to you. So kudos, that is a fantastic story, Chris. Lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah, and listen, it's been absolutely great to have you on and go into a bit more detail. It would be great to get another hour, probably, this time next year potentially, and bring you on and see how many other businesses you've started. But for anyone listening about how to take risks, how you make that jump from corporate to, full-time business owner, multiple business owner now, in the space of 3 months, what you've done is just incredible. So I'm going to stop before your head gets too big. But yeah, thanks for coming on. It's been great to chat to you, Chris.
Thanks very much for having me, and I'll give you that 20 quid, mate, for that. That about me. I'll pay you for that. Thanks very much.
No worries. See you there. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
As always, thank you so much for listening to the Pop Pod this week. If you'd like to leave a review or share the podcast with others, then that'd be awesome. You'll find us on Instagram at the Pop Pod, and on Facebook we have a community group called Purpose to Progress that anyone can join. And we'll be back every Monday with a new episode, but until then, stay on purpose, and we'll see you next week.